Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. We answer your questions 7 days a week. You can ask those questions in Makana. There you can also vote on the questions, discuss them with others. If you don't have Makana, just sign up at officehours.global/join, and then you'll start getting emails with links to Makana, Discord, what's coming up on the show. But if you don't want to sign up, you can just ask your questions at askofficehours.global, which doesn't require any login or sign up and is open 24/7. Check it out. Let's get to the questions. Alexander?
First question is from Douglas Carmichael. TVN, European operator, has unveiled a new large SDI truck. Does SDI still have a long-term future, even with the rise of 2110?
Courtney?
Yeah, I think it's going to be around for another 10 years or so, probably, because think of all the trucks that are out there that are all outfitted with patch panels and everything that are all done with SDI. They're not going to switch over to, Ethernet connectors suddenly. I think they will start by changing some of the equipment and, adding some of the 2110 connectors to the switcher so that you could bring a few things in directly over a separate patch panel. But I don't think they're going to switch over wholesale unless they're building a new truck. Because the other problem is you have to have cameras that support it. You have to support it from end to end. And that's a big buy-in to switch over to a completely new method of transporting signals.
Ronnie?
Yeah, and I guess they have a workflow that is SDI based, but probably over fiber as well. And I just regret, I saw this bus at the IBC convention. I just regret I didn't have time to visit them. I wish I had.
Next question.
Lenny Nelson in San Antonio. It's time for a new backpack. Any recommendations for a bag that usually holds MacBook Pro, iPad, and cables? Occasionally an extra laptop needs to get stuffed in there too. Secondarily, any good tips for cable management in your bag?
Jason?
Well, I'll answer the last part first. Cable management is really just a matter of discipline and wrapping over under and, leaving the same cables in the same place every single time in the same area of the backpack. As far as preference, this really does come down to taste. I have owned at least 2 or 3 of these over the years. They're big, they're spacious. This is the Low Pro Tactic 450 AW2. What I like about it is that it's very difficult to break into because the big zipper is all the way around your back. So when it's on your back, it's relatively secure. The downside is it's extremely conspicuous, and it looks like a backpack that houses expensive things. So if you're going to go incognito, it's probably not the best choice.
Alex?
It may not be doesn't look like it on the outside. I mean, for the last probably 15 years I've used, maybe 12 or 15 years, I've been using the Rush 24 from Tactical 511 Tactical. Can't remember which way it goes there. So there's a soft part on the back right against your back. That's actually where I put my laptop and my iPad is in that soft area there, not in the open area. What it does is it keeps that weight right up against my back, and it keeps me from, it keeps it from hanging out a little bit. It's a big backpack, and when it comes to cable management, one of the things that works is it's got a lot of pockets. So there's all these little pockets and crevices that I can put things in, and which I do fairly regularly. And so it's also got webbing on the outside. I use that webbing. I get some of the clips, and I can put a tripod. I can hang a tripod on the outside of it. And so there's a lot of flexibility in the backpack. It's pretty big. You can make it heavy, but these days I don't actually make it that heavy. What it usually houses now is I put the laptops on that area right behind my back, and then I have my Vision Pro and my headset on the in the cavity on the inside, because usually I'm traveling somewhere to fly. But there's so many little pockets. I keep lots of things in order in all those pockets. Drives in one place, and this kind of cable in another place, and the cables that I probably don't need are down at the bottom, but I keep them in there anyway. Anyway, it's been really rugged. I have gone through one in that period of time, but it probably saw 500,000 miles and 5 or 6 continents before it gave out.
I'm a big fan of the Nomad bags, or Nomadic, sorry, Nomatic, Nomadic. They're a little bit on the pricey side, but they're very robust, and they have a lot of pockets and some hidden stuff. For cable management, a couple years ago, I picked up a bag, and I think I'm on my second or third iteration. I picked this one up. There was actually one at the merch stand at NAB, so I had to. But it's got little pockets and things like that. And I actually have started recently resorting to putting tie line on my cables because I like them to not show a big sprawling mess. But I also know it's mine because there's a little piece of string on it. Next question.
Andy Shaw in London is asking, hi, we have had another X32 power supply go down, starting to think we should move over to Yamaha. A lot more expensive, and we will need stage boxes and mixers. Anyone made this move? Is extra expense worth it? Thanks.
I haven't made the move myself, but I'm a Flow 8 guy because I don't have a big fancy X32 mixer, but Alex does.
Yeah, I mean, the power supply is the most common problem. I think when you decide where you're going to go with that, it really depends on what are you going to do with it. So, obviously the Yamaha's got a couple entry level solutions. The problem really is in the price point that the X32 sits, especially the rack, which is I think $900 right now. It had gotten up to $1,600, and now I think it's down to $900. There's just not a lot of other options with the same level of service. So that's the thing you have to kind of look at. It just depends on how much I/O you need, what you needed to do, those types of things. And so, but I think that there are, most of the Yamaha mixers are better than I'll just flat out say are better than the Behringer mixers. I'm not going to ever say that it isn't. They're just more expensive for the same thing. So you just have to decide. And the key is, do you need Dante? Do you need a USB connection? Do you need how much I/O do you need? And you just got to look at what you need out of that mixer and then back into the solution.
Alexander.
Well, I mean, if audio quality is the main thing, I mean, yes, the preamps on the Yamaha stuff is going to be good. It's obviously an expensive proposition, like you've discovered, Andy, of switching from one platform to another. If it was me and I really knew the X32 really well, here's what I would want to do is have spare parts. So I would contact my Behringer dealer and see if you can order replacement power supplies. I would have a few of those ready to go in case you need to service them and just open them up and replace it when you need it.
And Mickey coming in the chat says, yes, absolutely worth it to go Yamaha for both sound, fidelity, and reliability and quality components. Next question.
This one is for me. Anyone know of a good atomic clock app for iOS? I tried GX 2021, but it doesn't display seconds, which is frustrating.
Alex?
The best atomic clock, in my opinion, for the phone or the iPad is the atomic clock by Gorgy Timing. It's Gorgy Timing, Gorgy Timing. I've had this clock since I think it was released. I don't know exactly when, but it was pretty early on in the app development world. The rest of them are just a bunch of posers. This is, I mean, a lot of other ones came after this one, but this was definitely the first one. And the nice thing about it is that it will show you, it shows you seconds. You can have it go, do a cycling of seconds. So it cycles around once for every second, which for some reason makes time feel like it's going slower. And so it'll do that. It'll show the date down the side the way Jason has it there. I usually don't like that, but it does do it. And then you can have it centered there. And then also it runs on an iPad really nicely. It can be all green, or you can have all those be slightly different colors. It is the atomic clock for the iPhone, in my opinion.
Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, 110%. I got the same thing. I'm kind of rack focus again. And I tried that because the app maker that you mentioned, the GX 2021, they make really cool physical atomic clocks. But I'm sorry, like the easiest way to do this is like iPod Touch directly in, even if you just have to mirror. Maybe when you move to Sequoia, you can just, get an old iOS device. And
by the way,
right in there.
Just updated a week ago. So it's not like and he pointed out, he goes, can you believe that this is the 58th update to the atomic clock?
I gave him a tip. I couldn't help it.
I know. I read that. I just gave him a tip too. I was just like, let me give you some money. It's a great app.
Next question.
Next question's from Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas. Machine customers are AI agents that make calls for you, order products, deal with customer service, and wait in line for you on a call. Boon to your production business.
Jesse?
This sounds a lot like autonomous vehicles. It's all fun and games until you introduce the concept of liability. It's really difficult for me to imagine deploying an AI with my wallet to talk to Verizon or Spectrum's AI bots and just let them sort out whatever they need to sort out. I think it'll be a lot slower to deploy than what the article is proposing, and a lot more limited and just, very, very slow to adopt by the people, just the liability issue alone.
John?
Yeah, I typically work on the other side, the business side of automating processes and turning phone calls into robocalls. Right now, the economics don't pencil out for using things like OpenAI. They announced the pricing for their advanced speech analytics or advanced speech mode, so you can use the API to access it. The cost of doing that is more expensive than hiring outsourced labor overseas, at least in a call center environment. That being said, within the last year, OpenAI's pricing model has dropped 95% for the Model 3.5 pricing. So it's just a matter of time. I think in the future we will have these systems automated for us, and that will help us, once we have the tools available, we'll be able to identify what are the best use cases where it really does make sense for both the customer and the business to automate some of these processes using natural language.
Courtney?
Yeah, I was thinking that they would just quickly move, once you have the agent, the AI agent calling the AI phone bank, once they establish that they're both AI, rather than fighting with each other verbally, they could just go, hey, we're both machines, let's talk in machine language, and they just shoot a bit stream over, and the other one gets that bit stream and processes it. You avoid all the translation from machine language to the spoken language, and from spoken language back to machine language, and looking stuff up and translating that back to spoken language. When machines are talking to machines, they have a much more efficient means of communication. So maybe that's what they're going to do. Under the covers, they're going to establish that first contact and go, oh, you're a machine? Yeah, well, I'm a machine. Bzz. Okay, problem solved.
Now I have Schoolhouse Rock stuck in my head. I'm a machine. Jesse, go ahead.
And that's the problem with this deployment. I just don't see how two robots talking to each other gets the customer any closer to the human-based solution, or the company closer to the human-based customer. Like I don't see that bridge.
There's a funny cartoon somewhere where there's just the two machines recognize that the other's a machine. That say, okay, there's no more emotions. Like, let's get to the bottom of this. What can we offer? What can you do for me here? Is this a real thing? Go ahead, John.
Yeah, we can say that people don't like to talk with machines. The reality of the data show that people much prefer to have a machine handle stuff for them and self-serve than talking to a person. People will do everything possible to avoid making a phone call to a human being if given that opportunity and if the experience is successful.
Alex?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many places where I do think that I would use a machine to call, especially when you're calling your cable or phone or sometimes the government, where I just needed to wait online, and then when it gets out, I just needed to make small talk until I get over there to talk about it. Like, I don't even need it to make any decisions. I just needed to do to just hold the line, because some of these, sometimes you're on for 3 or 4 hours or 45 minutes or whatever, and having something that can just listen, tell me when I'm in, hold the line for a second while I figure it out. That'd be super useful for me. It is, and I think that's part of the problem right now, is that a lot of companies save money by not having enough people to answer the phone. So, and sometimes it's because there's a lot of calls, but sometimes you feel like it's just because there's not that many people.
Next question.
From the QR code, Gabriela Echecho Mistiera in Sault Marie. Alex, what headsets for pro comms use, like with the Jands someone asked about, can turn off when the mic is lifted up? Thanks.
Alex?
Yeah, 99% of the comm headsets that I've used for the last 10 years have been all ClearComm. So ClearComm makes headsets. They're not inexpensive. Sennheiser makes some as well. I haven't used the Sennheiser ones because I've always had ClearComm, because I had ClearComm systems. But that you can get single muff, double muff, light, heavy. So it just depends on what you want. All of them, when you turn the arm up, it's going to mute it. So when you're talking about pro ones, those are the ones that I've seen in production the most, and the ones that I've used.
Next question.
Next one's another QR code from Gene J. Anthony in Skokie, Illinois. Have to ask again. Sorry, still don't know what it means. We were told by expert that we need to go to RAID 10+5 to help protect us and our friends better, but don't know what this means. Thought RAID only went to 6. How do we make this work? Does it go to 11?
Jason.
Gene, I hope I can help you better than I did the first time. RAID 10 is a nested RAID, so it's not actually a higher level. It is a combination of RAID 1 and RAID 0 kind of concatenated and mixed together in the same way that RAID 5. So what you actually have is a double nest, and I'll let Ronnie get more into the particulars.
Ronnie?
Yeah, so if you combine one 1 and 1 0 in a 10, so it's 1 plus 1, 1 plus 0. That's a 10 in normal when we talk about RAID levels. And then you add 5 of those into, for instance, a RAID 5, then you have a 10 plus 5. But actually it's a 1 plus 0 plus 5. And those are nested, so something is happening first, and then you put that together in a hybrid RAID solution. But there is I've been doing this for like too long, and there is something in the back of my spine that always tells me that if you add more drives into a RAID, the chance for some of the drives failing is also much higher. So if you have a RAID with 20 drives, well, it's 20 times as high risk of getting one failure in one of the drives. So, of course, there is speed things that if you're working towards these RAIDs and need speed, that's one type of RAID. So you can stripe them and have them work together and just have bits going every other drive. And then, of course, the backup security or the failure security is like RAID 5 or mirroring. So the combination of all these are just adding drives and adding risk of failure as well. So please remember that when you are planning out your storage.
Jason?
Yeah, that's worth reiterating. Ronnie made a really important point there. More is not better unless you're talking about money and business. In this case, the number of platters, there has to be a direct relationship between the number of platters and the odds that that is not going to scale. Because, again, if databases can't scale, you bet hard drives are not going to scale perfectly linearly.
Next question.
Ike Potter in Hanover, Germany is asking, the Lexar Professional Go portable SSD 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte with Lexar's new USB-C hub appears as an interesting ultra-compact solution for mobile phone rigs. Can it be pre-ordered on Amazon? Thoughts?
Go ahead, Courtney.
I think it's a Kickstarter, but I would advise against this. I always hate these things. The whole idea of putting a hub into a USB port is to take the stress of inserting and removing other USB devices from that port that is, wave soldered to a surface mount motherboard inside your computer or inside your phone. And the way this thing is designed with a hard-mounted USB-C coming out of the side of it, you stick it into your laptop directly into the USB-C port, which may block other ports. There's a problem. Or into the bottom of your phone. And then when you plug other stuff into the hub, like more memory or an additional hard drive or anything that requires USB audio connection, whatever, you're now magnifying the stress on that connector that's in the phone. So once that connector breaks one of those tiny little solder joints loose, then your phone's dead. You're dead to me, phone. Or your laptop needs a new logic board. So if you're going to use it a lot, if it's just going to be sitting in one place and you're not going to be touching it very much, yeah, great. But if you're using it on a portable rig for, memory storage using your phone as a camera, I'd worry about it messing up the USB-C connector on my phone or my laptop.
Jason?
There was a second hour years ago where I got an OWC SSD and I recorded 6K in RAW for the entirety of the second hour. ever since then, I haven't really looked at another kind of ultra compact SSD because these things are so solid and like so well designed that they're very, very hard to beat. So I can't speak to the hub, but really try to rule that one out and decide why you wouldn't want to try the OWC instead of this one.
Alex?
Yeah, and you do want to run it as, to the full capacity of whatever the drive is. If you're going to do a test, we just used some Crucial X10s, which we thought would work well. And in some of the cameras, basically they got to about 2.5 hours. So if you're doing less than 2.5 hours, it's great. But at 2.5 hours, once they got to a certain, we thought it was heat, but it's really a certain fill size. They became much less efficient really fast. And these are rated at 2 gigs a second, kind of like small drives. So it's definitely worth pulling them out, hooking up to a camera, and letting it run until they're full, and see if you get any drop frames.
Courtney.
One other warning that Lexar and SanDisk are two of the most counterfeited memory devices out there on the world. So if you're buying it, make sure you buy it from an authorized Lexar dealer. Because there are knockoffs of all the Lexar and all the SanDisk products out there they'll say they're 2 terabyte, but they're only 12K or 30 megabytes once you plug them in.
Next question.
Gene J. Anthony in Skokie, Illinois. NAS question. We use Samba sometimes. Is there a way to not have to use it? We don't like using foreign technologies.
Alex?
I don't think Samba is a foreign technology. I think SMB, it's called Samba because it was an SMB and it was just easier to say. But this was, I believe, developed by IBM. So, and it's not really it's a protocol. I don't think that, it's not really a technology. And so, and if you're using it, generally that's what you need to use. I mean, there's lots of other things like NFS and AFP and all these other things, but but if someone has you using SMB connections, it's probably the right solution. There's not a lot of other solutions to that protocol.
Next question.
Dot Ep in Lake Hamilton, Arkansas is asking, what's a good Shure workout mic and body pack setup? Low cost, but effective.
Alex?
I'm trying to find there used to be a Shure 75, and I'm just trying to find it's not that anymore. I mean, many of these in this range are going to be pretty good. I think that there's the one that's coming up quickly is the SM31FB, and a lot of these are, they're rugged. They're built to be, to get moderately wet, and they have relatively good off-axis rejection. But I think that the ones that are probably the most common now, and again, I haven't had to buy these for a little while, looks to be the SM31FH.
Alexander?
Yeah, so sounds like what you're looking for is a wireless bundle system with that headset. So Alex is right. The fitness branded headset is that SM31. It has a moisture resistant band, and a lot of people, and it has a nice tight fit, which a lot of fitness people like. I would look at, for Shure products, I would look at the BLX series. I think they're in the $400 range. And that's kind of a mid-price, like reasonably. You don't want to really go lower than that. I always tell people, if you're spending less than $500 on a wireless, you're probably looking at something that's really cutting corners, probably wireless 2.4 gigahertz spectrum. The BLX stuff doesn't operate on 2.4, so you want to stay away from that stuff. So, of course, now Shure does have the new GLX-D Plus series, which is now straddling the line between 2.4 and the 5 gigahertz range, so it can switch between them. I'd like to stay away from those. So BLX line with that SM31 headset.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks, do you find that actors with live theater experience translate well to voiceover, or is broadcast experience more applicable to VO?
Jesse?
If I were casting in a vacuum and all the information I had about the two different talents on the roster, where one has only experience in broadcast and the other only has experience in theatrical, I would go with broadcast because mic technique is very, very different from amphitheater technique. But the reality is that we've never encountered this vacuum in casting our voiceover talent. Most of our talent has experience in both. They know their way around a mic, they know their way around an amphitheater, and it's really what's the voice that's appropriate for the job. So it starts with the commission and then goes from there aesthetically before we get into those experiential concerns.
Courtney?
Yeah, theater actors are coached to project so that the person in the last row of the theater can hear you from the stage without amplification. And you put them in front of a high-quality condenser microphone, and they're going to be too loud and put too much force behind it. They lose a lot of subtlety in a stage actor. Also, they're used to audience reaction, so their timing may be different if you stick them by themselves in a VO booth. Let's say they're doing a voice for a cartoon series or something, and they're not recording in ensemble mode, unlike The Simpsons, which does record in ensemble mode. But they're waiting to hear reactions from the other actors and from the audience, and you're not going to get that. And they feel their delivery can become kind of flat because they don't know how to respond unless the director is really good and giving them a lot of good feedback on what to do and the area that their line should be aimed at.
Next question.
Funsak Dorji and Dharamshala, India is asking, hi panelists, here's my Atem Mini Extreme is connected to Kiloview G2 Encoder HDMI. Up to what MB can I create the bitrate, CBR or VBR? Thanks.
Good, Ronnie.
I tend to use CBR more than variable bitrate, and the reason is I feel that it's more stable. Depending on where you're putting this stream, for YouTube, for instance, at 1080, and it also depends on the frame rate, of course, but somewhere between 8 and 12, 13 megabits per second would be optimal for 1080, I would think. But yeah, there might be other advices as well.
Alex?
Yeah, at 30 frames a second, we find that 6 to 8 is a 1080p is a pretty solid amount, compression rate for H.264. It can be a little bit less if it's H.265. But Ronnie's 100% right. If you're doing it 60 frames a second for sports, then you definitely want to double that. Like not a little bit, but double it. So, go to 12 to, basically 12 to 16 megs a second. I'm not sure what the Kiloview is capable of, but also remember, depending on what the platform is, some have a maximum load that they can handle. YouTube, I don't know if it does. I think I've pushed it to, it'll give you warnings, but I've pushed it to about 35 megs a second for 4K and not had it do anything other than play the frames out. So it can handle a lot on the way in. You definitely want to use CBR. VBR is for live streaming is not a good idea. So CBR is, because it puts a lot of pressure on the encoding pipeline on the other end. And so you definitely don't want to, you want it to always be the same bit rate.
Next question.
Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana asks, what time of day is best for doing voiceover work and how do you warm up your vocal cords?
Jesse?
We kind of find the sweet spot to be an hour or two after waking up in the morning, and you prepare by doing your general exercises, which I'm not going to do on mic because I don't want to drive anyone nuts. But also like a cup of honey, a ginger, and lemon, hot, very hot, will get you off to a good start. But we want to do it early in the day when you're still fresh from a good night's sleep. Your voice hasn't had fatigue from speaking all day, and you've still got that kind of early morning mist inside of you.
Courtney?
Yeah, I agree. Especially if you're a man, early morning is the most resonant deep. Your vocal cords are relaxed. As you get later in the afternoon, I start to talk like this, and my vocal cords become much more stiff and tired, and not as relaxed as they are in the morning. So always in the morning. The problem you have to deal with is gardeners and garbage trucks if you don't have a completely silent studio.
Alex?
Yeah, I think that, if you're able to care for if you're doing voiceovers all the time and you're able to care for your voice, no caffeine, no milk, no stress, you can sometimes get to the afternoon and shoot it. But I don't think I've done a voiceover after 9 a.m. in 25 years. I definitely learned that before 9 a.m., before I started interacting with the world, before I had too much caffeine, before I had all those other things, I found that I sounded more, interestingly enough, I just felt like I had more control over my voice at that point. And to Courtney's point, by the middle of the day or the end of the day, my voice is just much less flexible. It depends on how much you're talking as well. But I think that, so I've always focused on pre 9 a.m. for me mostly.
Jesse?
And also pre 9 a.m., you're kind of given that grace period with no emails coming in, no phone calls, nobody needing you in the house or anything like that.
I
So you
have
just
that all the time. I leave notifications off, and if I decide I'm not going to have any email or phone calls for the next 2 hours, they just don't occur.
Some of you may know this, but before the show, I usually will drive to get a cup of coffee, which is, that's the caffeine that you're not supposed to put in your body. But also I put on some karaoke tracks in the car, and I find Meatloaf early in the morning can really shake the sleep right off your voice. Also, if you do BAT, it's a real, it makes you think, because if you're driving, you can't be looking at stuff. So you got to remember all those words. It's a mental exercise and a vocal exercise. Jason?
Yeah, my favorite, and I'll just throw this in here, is anything by Rockapella. Like, acapella is the most fun to sing, doesn't matter what.
Next question.
QR code from Gene J. Anthony in Skokie, Illinois. Alex, why can't they make B&H open today? They are known for their good business accounting skills, so they should be able to figure it out. We mostly prefer other stores, but obviously they have the best deals on many things. Is there a good U.S. alternative?
Go ahead, Jason.
I believe B&H is closed today because it's the High Holy Day, and the answer, the reason that it's not opened is because they've decided that is more important than revenue or money or any of the above, and that is their right as the owners of the business.
Jesse?
And they also observe Shabbat, so every Friday they will turn off orders anyway.
Courtney?
Yeah, there are a number of businesses like this that observe religious holidays, and they're being strict Orthodox. They observe all the Jewish holidays, Rosh Hashanah being today, I think. So they're not open. But, you can't get a Chick-fil-A on Sunday either. But, you'll just have to learn to deal with it. I mean, I suppose they could have a whole Goya's sales force rush in on Friday night and handle all the sales through Sunday morning. But I don't think they'd still need somebody to manage it, open the stores, which would be forbidden for all of them, their religion. So we just have to respect their religion. Sammy's Camera, however, I think in LA, it's open now for all of your AV purchasing needs.
Alex?
I always applaud businesses who have figured out a way that they can limit their opening hours and not be kind of held hostage to their customers. And I think there's no other better example than B&H, because not just today, it is they'll take a week and a half off for some of these holidays. We used to have an alert that went out 2 days before. Literally, it was a timed alert that would email everybody in the company going, hey, by the way, B&H is going to be closed in 2 days. If you something you need to order it now. And I've actually talked to some retailers who I will remain nameless, who tell me that a third of their sales are done during B&H's, a third of their sales are done during B&H's close time. They said because it's just like as soon as that flow turns off, it's really good for everybody else around them because everyone's got to find out where to buy those things. And so it's a really fascinating thing. We used to joke that it's the proof that God exists because they take every religious holiday and they just keep growing. I mean, I don't think people realize sometimes how big B&H is. They are the second largest reseller of Apple computers other than Apple, and it's not even their core business, So anyway, it's a massive undertaking, and I definitely think that whether it's taking off Sundays or Saturdays or Fridays or holidays or whatever, letting your employees take the time off, taking a pause as a company, I think is a great thing to do. Even though it's a little inconvenient for us, we just have to manage our situation a little more carefully.
And happy Rosh Hashanah to everyone. Next question.
Next one's from Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas. This new Apple update has wrecked the Photos app. Why can't Apple get this right and be at least on a level playing field with Google Photos? No joke, I'm not kidding.
John?
The reason why is because Apple uses makes editorial decisions about how their software works. And they consciously choose to not include every single feature. We complain about the likes of Microsoft for never getting rid of old features, but that's what it would take in order to keep Apple Photos working the same way you personally want it to. You can either have software that evolves or software that doesn't evolve. You can't have both. For me, Apple Photos wasn't wrecked. It was changed, and it works about the same for me in my use cases.
Jason?
Yeah, because progress is iterative, and part of Apple's brand has always been, we're not going to leave it the same, and no, it doesn't matter what you think. Keep in mind, I was a little annoyed by the betas in the very beginning, but unless the only thing that I think could possibly annoy you is right when you launch photos, if the only thing you do is go all the way to the bottom of every single one of your photos, they interrupted that. And by the way, you can turn the rest of the ones that are down below there off. So opinion, and no, they didn't wreck anything. It's theirs.
Alex?
Yeah, I hate it. I mean, I hate photos. I hate the update. And I think the problem is that Photos is an app that I use a lot. And I think that's the problem is Apple poked into something that a lot of people use all day, every day. And I felt like the last version it was just a very comfortable version. It really worked. It did everything I wanted it to do. It showed me old photos that I hadn't seen before. It was just really a pleasure to use. And I feel like it was like at its pinnacle. And then they've added all the stuff. The biggest problem I have is I just want to browse the photos. I don't want to select all the photos. I don't want to do anything else with the photos. And it's in this constant state. I'm hoping they're going to iron that out. But I'm hoping that they'll find some middle ground because I admit that I just think the new Photos is trash. And I'm a pretty big Apple fan. But I went to customize. I turned almost everything off. There's like 2 things left on, and it's still just. And here's the hard part is I have to go back to my old phone to look at what's different. All I know is that it's not. It was something that I did every day, and it's now like I just sigh if I have to find a photo and just go, oh, like now I have to go into this stupid app to find it. And I'm not ready to go to Google's Photos yet, but if it doesn't get any better, I may think about moving my library around. Like it's just too hard. It's the hard part that Apple has is that we all I have photos on all my machines. I mean, making a decision like, oh, I want to manage it some other way, they can do whatever they want, and it's going to be very hard for me to change it. But it's really, it's a horrible update. Like whoever thought this was a good idea, they need to reconsider their life choices. It's just a horrible update.
Courtney?
Apple has always been my way or the highway type of company. Look at Final Cut Pro when they went to 10 from 7. That made a lot of people mad because they kind of just said, okay, we're going another way. And you can make progress and still support the old way of doing things. It's just put choices and checkboxes in there. It adds to the complexity of the program. But you don't alienate yourself from all the people that have grown up with that app and used it for 20 years. Suddenly across, because some marketing guy thought it would look cooler and sleeker and faster and easier for them maybe, but not for the way you've been doing things. Google Photos. Yeah, I'm still running programs that I wrote on Windows in 2000 and 1999. They still run in Windows 11.
Jason?
My feeling as to why this may be weird at the moment is because I think there's a lot of stuff like a story with holes that they had to hold back because it's the result of Apple AI and Apple Intelligence, and that is the result of like, okay, we're going to put this in, and whatever's left because we can't show you the rest of it. Too bad. That's my thought on this particular update. And wrecked is still a hard word. I think, when we talk about wrecked, it's the Apple TV, that new interface. Hate that. But subjective.
Yeah, I have to live a little bit in the Microsoft world because of my day job. And I always tease Microsoft because they're like, this is the new Outlook. And you want to switch back to the old Outlook? And there's always this period of time where they're supporting 2 systems and you want to move forward, you don't want to move forward. And it's like, make a decision. But then you realize when it is something that so many people have developed a muscle memory for and used every single day, maybe there's a little bit of a slower rollout you can do. But, we plead. Please fix. Next question.
Next question is from Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana. How would you go about creating this amazing wide shot today? AfterEffects, Flame, Resolve, Unreal, Maya, Nuke, or just pay for that practical set and costumes and use drones?
Jesse?
Well, let's take a look at what we're talking about, and then let's talk about what we're looking at. So what we're talking about is this shot from Intolerance, directed by D.W. Griffith. I think it's playing back, maybe not. There we go. So if you're D.W. Griffith, you would do this by building the set to scale and then hiring every single extra that you're seeing in the shot and choreographing it exactly as you're seeing it. If you're Lucas in the 70s, you'd probably be doing a combination of miniatures, matte painting, and compositing. If you're Spielberg in the 2000s, you'd be building pretty much everything in a computer. And if you're George Miller now, you'd be building it physically and then blowing it up as soon as you're done.
Alex?
Yeah, and I think for modern directors, it would also depend on who the director is and how much money they have access to. So Christopher Nolan probably build it from through the whole thing there, maybe have a little bit of set extension to it. I think that it is most of the time, most of that would be a digital set at this point. So that would be a digital matte set. It would probably be a mixture of a handful of people, but a wide shot that was shown there would have been probably just almost all digital, if not completely digital. Like I think that if you put enough money into it, it can work. I mean, I definitely worked on shots 25 years ago that definitely were all digital, that were the same type of scale that you'd have. Obviously, when you jump into these close-ups, of course, you do need to have them. I think the SW1, Star Wars Episode 1, 2, and 3 probably would have at least had the foreground potentially there as a physical set, and the rest of it be extended out with digital. But it's a complicated process, and it really just comes down to money and scale.
Courtney?
Yeah, it'd probably be all CGI today. But I'll tell you one thing. Back then, they had look at the eye makeup on all these in silent films. You know, the story was told with the eyes a lot, so they have this huge amount of mascara around the eyes. That would probably be CGI today. CGI mascara for all actors.
Is it CGI makeup?
Yeah, CGIE. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I have to think. Christopher Nolan would actually just, instead of using a simple crane, would build the entire set, put it on its own set of like hydraulics, and move the set instead of the camera, because that's just how he works.
Next question.
Next one's from Douglas Carmichael. An AI startup is aiming to help mental health professionals manage their records. Could you see HIPAA risks with sending HIPAA-protected data to the genAI companies?
John?
Yes. HIPAA is a federal law that outlines the general requirements for health organizations who contain protected health information, which is health information that's connected to that can be identified with an individual. Most of the AI companies that are working in the health field are developing HIPAA compliant, what they call HIPAA compliant models, including OpenAI has one. The misconception with HIPAA is mostly what the law's about is a risk management activity, which is to say any organization that holds or transmits this information is liable and responsible for the protection and appropriate sharing of the information. That being said, you're at way higher risk with inappropriate use of your medical information just by having humans who have access to see it than you are any particular given transmission of it over an electronic wire.
Jason?
Yeah, SOPA and HIPAA are not what most people think it is. It is not. All health data is sacrosanct and, has severe penalties for any misuse. That's not at all what it means, not even a little bit. At the end of the day, the fewer people that see any sort of private thing, the better.
Jesse?
And also read the fine print when you're getting medical care, because pretty much every place that I've interacted with in America for medical care has some built-in clauses that you are releasing HIPAA-protected information for them to allowing them to share in our office and with other companies in service of your care. So, yeah, like Jason said, it's not sacrosanct.
Next question.
Brent Collins in Little Rock, Arkansas, from the QR code is asking, with all the changes in traditional media, Paramount Studio closure, YouTube is starting to focus on TV. The new app is being redesigned for TV, etc. Do you see this as a good time for indie content production?
Alex?
It depends on what you're talking about with indie content production. I mean, I think that definitely YouTube is a good experience. I mean, a good opportunity for a lot of folks getting started. But you do have to figure out what your business model is going to be. So you have to, the relying on YouTube either their premiere or their advertising is probably not going to pay the bills. And so most of the YouTubers that I know have ancillary ways of making money. That might be consulting, that might be speaking, that also could be products, that could be partnerships, brand deals. There's lots of different ways that gets managed. And so, but you have to really understand what that looks like. I think that they're definitely seeing that the behavior of watching YouTube is definitely moving more and more towards the TV. So what started on the computer or on a mobile, they're seeing, when you watch it on TV, you have a tendency to watch it for a longer period of time. They've extended, by the way, shorts as of, I think, yesterday or the day before. Shorts now go up to 3 minutes, which is a big deal for us. We kind of gave up on shorts because I was doing a bunch of them, or we were doing a bunch of them. And 1 minute just didn't seem to capture what we do here. And it was very hard to, find an answer that made sense in a minute. And so we just said, well, this is literally the conversation was, we are going to wait until the limit gets higher. And so now it's here. So we'll see what we can do. But I think, so they are paying attention to longer view times in those areas. And so I think that you're going to see more it's not really they're looking for TV or trying to compete with Paramount or others. They're just looking at the TV format and they're thinking about, well, how do you interact with your controller? How does it look? So already the over-the-top solutions are better than oftentimes the computer solutions or other solutions. For instance, 5.1, HDR, those things work better on your TV than they do on your computer.
Jesse?
And if we're just talking in terms of developing indie content, in the entire span of human history, we've never had a better time to develop indie content, and I imagine tomorrow will be even better, and the next day will be even better than that. We just have so many wonderful tool sets and audiences that are able to find the content that they love, the independently produced content that they love. It's the best it's ever been in our species' history, and it's only going to continue to get better.
Next question.
From the QR code, Gene J. Anthony in Skokie, Illinois. Alexander, where are you buying spare parts for the X32? Behringer is a great German brand, but Sweetwater told us they were told to discontinue repairs for the X32 due to all spare parts being reserved to make new ones, and we should buy a replacement.
Alexander?
That's possible. I haven't actually tried to order them, but I've tried to. This is a good point, actually. I should have said something about this, because as someone who has sold Behringer products in the past, getting parts can sometimes be really challenging. I just did a quick search. You can find these power supplies on eBay. In fact, they are there now for about $130 US. So at that price point, I would probably buy a couple of these things and have them ready to go in case you need to service that thing.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks, has anyone ever used wireless studio headphones like Alpha Theta's HDJ F10?
Alex?
The problem really is that a lot of us don't really experiment that much with our headsets. So if it's an off brand, I mean, a lot of us are using Sonys and Audio Technicas and everything else. Once you get up to that price point at $500, the only headsets that I really have at $500 that are wireless, especially, is the Apple one, because it integrates with a bunch of other things. The Apple Max or whatever integrates with a bunch of other things that I use, and so I don't think that it sounds as good as some of the other headsets that I have. But generally, most of the people here, I know that people buy $500 wireless headsets, but most of the people here, I think, once they start to get into that price, they're starting to go into wired.
Jason?
Yeah, Apple's value add for me, at least, the reason that I have the AirPods Pro, Pro Max, the Princess Leia style headphones is they do spatial audio, and it sounds really, really great. That is a value add to Bluetooth. And nobody else, as far as I can tell, can actually do that in any way, shape, or form in a compelling way. And, for everything else wireless, bodypack and IEMs.
Next question.
Next question is from Douglas Carmichael. The FCC is creating a pilot program to fund cybersecurity improvements for schools and libraries in the U.S. Wouldn't qualified people be just as important as the products?
John?
Yes, they would be just as important, but unfortunately, it's not a lot of money. The program is about $200 billion. There's 200,000 public schools and libraries in the United States, which means on average, if you were to just spread the money out evenly, they'd get $1,000 each, which is hard to hire a cybersecurity professional with.
It's 200 million, not
Oh, okay. So it's even less than that. 1,000 times less than that.
Jesse?
Blackmagic created more qualified live switchers by releasing the Atem when they did than any other live switching company, any other product manufacturer in the history of live switching. This is how you create qualified individuals, is by putting the tools into students' hands as early as possible.
Jason?
Yeah. Get out of my head, Jesse. It's exactly what I was going to say. Is like, I've got a better idea. Put a price and a prize for, if you're under 10, have a coding contest. And the best way to get good, responsible cybersecurity is to teach kids how to program.
Next question.
From the QR code, Chester Sweeney in Las Vegas, Nevada is asking, my 5-year-old son has started to do several cartoon voices. Any voices he should practice more than the rest for widening his range?
John?
I would just encourage him to play and do things that are creative, however he would like to do that keeps him engaged. If he comes to you asking, how do I get better at this? I think a much better use of your time is helping him find a way to record and hear his own voice so he can give himself feedback.
Jesse?
Also, maybe now's not the time to get him into voices, but the time to get him into voice actors. Perhaps some Stan Freberg tapes would be a nice gift for him at this upcoming holiday season. Get him familiar with June Foray, Thurl Ravencroft, Vincent Price. Get him hearing all these different voices that really defined voice acting. And boy, there's just so much to delight. Get him going.
Courtney?
Well, you can get him interested, but if he's going to work professionally, he should wait till after he's 12 if he's a boy, because his voice is going to completely change. And so any voices that he's been worked on, he probably won't be able to do in about 6 years. So, you can get him interested in the field, but trying to perform it, wait till you're 12.
Alex?
I mean, laugh at them, encourage them, to brag about them when he does them. Those are the kind of things at 5 years old you want to do, is make sure that he's having fun with it and he's proud that he's able to do all these voices. At 5 years old, it'll generate an awful lot of energy. So I grew up in a family where it was hard to get someone's attention if you didn't have 5 or 6 voices that you could do. So it was kind of, when you go there, we were always impersonating other people and other things. And I think, but it was mostly just and as I got older, I mean, I did do voice acting for a while. It was a lot of fun. I didn't get to a point where it paid the bills for a long period of time, but I definitely enjoyed doing it. So it's a fun thing to do. But again, as said, encouragement and adding some pride to it will have him working on it all the time.
The other thing I would say is also see if there's any musical inclination, because a lot of times singing, even though it's not the same as doing cartoon voices, it does teach you what your voice can and can't do. It teaches you how to breathe. And to add to the cavalcade of great voice actors, there's a documentary on Mel Blanc that I think would be lovely for somebody that age. Next question.
David Brady in New York City, New York, is asking, using Zoom rooms along with NDI, is it possible to rename the NDI published stream names? Our room naming convention is kind of verbose.
Go ahead, Alex.
If CJ knows, that's great. I was about to tell you that you stumped us. I don't know if you can or not. Go ahead, CJ.
No, I don't. I didn't mean to raise a hand. I was trying to raise yours. My bad. Next question.
From the QR code, Chuck Hodges in Tuolumne, California. When people can't shop, they often turn to cooking to entertain. With this show's long history of cookery, this seems like a good approach. In honor of B&H's closing, what's your best brisket recipe or vegan brisket solution?
Go ahead, Ronnie.
Well, brisket are one of my favorites after eating some of that in my younger days. We use a Traeger pellet grill, which is of course nothing compared to our real smoker, where you can really do the real stuff. But the thing that is cool with those products is they are getting connected. So I have full control over my grill from my phone app, and that's kind of the cool thing about recipes making. If it's brisket or anything else, I use my phone to control it, and that's good enough for me.
Alex?
Did I raise on that one? I think that I don't know how to make brisket. I'm if it doesn't include sous vide, I don't really know how to cook meat. So that's pretty much my answer there.
I'll second Ronnie's comment about the pellet grill. A slightly less expensive alternative to Traeger is Green Mountain Grill. I have one of those, and it's great. It hooks up to the Wi-Fi. You can even program it to say, hey, cook this low and slow at 150 for 3 or 4 hours, and then when you want to finish it, take it up to 400 for 25 minutes to give you a nice char on the outside. The connected cooking really is it's changed your ability to plan. You don't have to babysit it for a whole day. It really can make a difference. Go ahead, Alex.
I will say if you see it on sale, I think they closed it, but mine still works, which is the June, and we have a June at the house. Use it every single day, and it's probably 4 or 5 times a day of ways I can just program things, everything from toast to potatoes to lots of other things. And as CJ said, that these kinds of connected devices are pretty interesting.
Ronnie?
I got to be honest. I have the old one without the connected, and I just had to get the new one with the connections. So
it's really good. I always know what everybody's cooking because it goes, it's done. Like I get the thing on my phone, like your meal is done. So it's fun.
While we're on the topic of connected things, on that combustion thermometer, that is a Bluetooth thermometer that's a little pricey, but it will tell you when your meat's going to be done within about a minute, is crucial. Next question.
Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas asks, what headset mic would be acceptable for an OH panelist?
Alexander?
Yeah, depends what your budget is. I wouldn't go lower than something like a Shure Duraplex series, which is a sub-miniature Omni dual band, dual headband over the ear, and those sound quite good. On the higher end too, the DPA stuff is good. You're going to pay a couple $100 more. You're fast approaching $1,000 for a really high-end headset.
Alex?
Yeah, the only ones that I've used here are the Countryman H6 and the DPA 4066. I think it's now a 6066, and those have been the only two that. And I will say that they're still not as good as having a real mic. So if you're coming on to office hours, we would recommend spending less on a mic that is more apt towards radio than a headset mic.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap another great day of Q&A. Thanks for joining us. Also, thank you to the panel for being here. We appreciate your time and your expertise. I like to say no one of us is as smart as all of us. And you make it a great day to be here every day. Thanks also to the back-end crew. There's a small village that lights up every day all over the world to make this show run. The volunteers are working around the clock sometimes to keep us organized, make the show possible. Couldn't do it without you. And finally, thanks to the producers. Yeah, such great questions. It's a very short show without those questions, but you also keep us going every day, not only with questions, but also generosity. So if you like what you're seeing, consider supporting us at officehours.global/donate. The $12 traversal today, if we had to go around and ask these questions to everybody individually and travel all over the world, would have traveled 56,000 miles. That's 91,000 kilometers, and that's 446 million bananas for scale. All right, we'll see you in After Hours.
And no,
every time I see this banana,
you can't name your NDI screams. I got that from a good source. Just came out of the
got a definitive.
You got a definitive answer.
You can't what your NDI screams?
You can't rename them. You can't rename the NDI published stream names.
Once they're out there, they're entered into all the routing information. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there. Sorry about that.
I didn't show. Maybe tomorrow I'll show. I made a whole bunch of avatars. So when I do pitches of like layouts and everything else, I just went to Midjourney and created like 60 avatars that are all different looking people, that look like photographs.
It's an army of Alexes.
No, it's not on me. It's like it's got lots of diversity. It's got lots of they all lighting, everything. I mean, like everything's different about them, and so you can throw them in, and I got to tell you, it makes all the presentations much nicer.